Good evening, everyone. Let's head in to Collectively Rewilding. All right, here we are in Collectively Rewilding. And once again, there's been new activity that will just be another reminder for class. And tonight is, I think, our second session of garden planning Q&A. And I just love the image. I think it's so pretty. But then it was looking at it, and it looks like they put the tomatoes on the wrong side of the plant. These, radishes, beets, carrots, you can see that. But over here, I'm pretty sure those are tomatoes when I really looked at it. So AI and its quirks, right? Excuse me. Let's head right into gardening planning Q&A. And how are your cucumbers growing, Kindez?
They're good. I think it stopped because the
Oh
last couple
no.
of days it's been in the high
Oh,
40s.
oh. Um, yeah, they're a warm weather plant, so
Yeah.
that might have that might have put paid to those cucumbers, right? So were you able to harvest a few of them? Didn't you say you had a few small fruits?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been
Okay.
harvesting them and eating them.
And so what I was actually doing while we were not quite ready to be in class, a couple of different things. I was watching some of the garden area videos, and I also last night ordered the cool season planner. And I thought she might have been picking on my large document. Well, I sure hope not, because her cool season planner is only one of four. And I think this is going to be a 60-page book, she said. So we're talking, what, 240 pages for her garden planner. So I wasn't already worried about it. And now I'm just kind of wondering in my head if any of it had anything to do with that. But it was just so funny. And she had this simple garden plan that she put out. And yet she has this incredibly um, detailed planner herself. So very interesting. She's kind of all the above, I guess, really, right? And so that was really interesting to hear again her thoughts on it, and it was really appropriate. So when you're in January, you're planning for April, right? You have to be thinking about getting your seeds, and if you're going to start plants indoors and getting your setup going and things like that, so that your larger plants are already ready to go, along with the ones that you can put out as the seed directly into the ground for your first growing season, depending on what part of the country you're in, right? And so here it can really vary. Probably somewhere towards the end of March would be most likely, right? And so that's why you want to be thinking about it in January, because you are wanting to already start putting out maybe some of your beet plants or your broccoli plants or your cauliflower plants, some of the cool season plants that take a little bit longer, right? And it was really interesting to hear the way she thinks about it. I think it's just very clear. That's why I really like her program. And I also like that it's so continuously involving growing something every single part of the season. That is absolutely what I believe in as well. And so her system fits so well with the things that I already believe. We definitely have a few differing opinions on some things, but it's been a lot of fun to tear through all of her thoughts. And so that's what you would have wanted to do, Kindez, if you wanted to have that cucumber finish. Cucumber is going to take at least 90 days. So that's 3 months. So you need to be doing your end of harvesting by, oh, okay, so if it's in the 40s, when did it stop being in the upper 60s to low 70s?
Uh, Maybe a week or two ago.
Okay, so that's when you kind of want to be getting that last little bit of harvesting or planning on doing some covering to try to extend your season a little bit, right?
Hmm.
So I think we started talking about your cucumbers maybe 2 months ago. Would you
Hmm.
agree? So you
Hmm.
were just 1 month behind, right? So Yep, that would put you towards like what, the end of August.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, if you want to do a last planting for fruits of that nature, it needs to be more towards the beginning or end of July at the latest. All right. Now,
Mm-hmm.
if you started them indoors and you can bring them outdoors at a little bit later point, right? Something like that. Of course, if you buy them from the store, I agree with Nicole Burke. So anytime you don't have to buy from the store, you're going to be leaps and bounds ahead because those plants are so weakened by the conditions that they are grown in, right? Not exemplary. Maybe at a local mom and pop nursery, you're talking a different kind of a standard. But if you're getting like Bonnie plants or something like that, it's mass production, right? When is mass production the most positive result, right? Not very often.
Mm-hmm.
So, not with food or things of that nature, especially. So, that's something to just be aware of. And that's why our garden planning course and having this to go alongside it, right? So, we'll meet every Monday, and we are going to meet as long as everything's going normally this Saturday to replace the Plan Your Wild workshop when my horrible internet issues occurred, because I really want to start walking through and talking it out and seeing what's realistic for what we have for November. So I don't want to lose another week, right? So we did lose the first week, not a problem. That was getting it prepared because this is really for next year. But I always want us to be kind of in the flow and seeing how it's working and seeing how it kind of plays out when we're in those Monday meetings, and how we can use tonight's meeting to really back that up and to encourage all of us to follow through on whatever it is that we've decided to implement from that week's talk, right? Does that sound like a good plan moving forward?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Miss Vanessa? Looks like maybe, oh, Mr.
Yeah,
Benny. Hello, Benny.
I like that.
Yeah. And do you feel like that would be something that would help you to be having a more enjoyable time, as well as probably increasing your levels of success and amount of commitment that you make to yourself and your garden?
I think
Almost
so.
definitely.
Help know when to plan them and know the last ones are coming.
And know the next ones are coming. Is that what you said?
When it's gonna stop the season.
So let me show you the pictures. I forgot that was part of why I was doing that with you guys. This is something that I've talked to you a little bit about where Nicole Burke doesn't agree. Oh my goodness. And this blocks off, interestingly enough, the Zoom. I've not seen that happen really. So this is the circle method that she believes is better, and I agree with her 100%, than square foot gardening. Though I think that was a great thought process and was a big part of probably what led her to her thought process, right? We all build on what has come before us. And this is obviously a more space conscious approach. It's also, if you think about it, when you view planters in lush articles and magazines and things like that, the pictures that we showed here from Gardenary, right? And I don't know how deep that is in my pictures. Let's see, it doesn't get too deep. Always so much going on, right? So maybe I moved it. Oh no, here we go. Okay, so this is a really good example of what I'm talking about. It's so filled and it doesn't look like the plants are competing to the point that they are showing any damage, but there's so much going on and it's all so beautiful. But look, these are probably squash plants right here. And
Those
this,
look like cucumbers.
it could be definitely really either or, right? And
Yellow.
so well, yeah, you're right. Squash plants do have bigger flowers. I think you're right, Kendez. Okay, so there's your cucumbers or something a little bit smaller like that. Then you have just flowers. She talks about just flowers being a part of it. It makes it so much more enjoyable, and it also distracts the pests, right? And adds a whole nother layer to any garden. And especially when you start adding in, I really like plants that are beautiful flowers that do something. So these over here, perhaps these, I'm pretty sure do not have any like edible or medicinal or anything kind of quality, but you never know. And so these are using this circle pattern to really plant out each square inch of your garden, not to overwhelm any individual plant, but not to leave it extra room. You don't want to plant and then a plant and then a plant, right? And that, I think, is such a brilliant design because it is beautiful. For small spaces, it's so useful. And as she said in one of the videos I watched tonight, it can bring constant new activity and interaction as well as enjoyment in anybody's garden. When you have all these different things going on, how much fun is it to go out and just kind of watch and see what's happening, right? I love that myself. Abundance is something I definitely agree with. And so jumping back into this upper part here, we have the timing. And so this is what I was talking about, right? Where you're in January, but you're planning for April. That's where the last frost month is for this particular variation of a plan. And then July hits and you're planning again. That's actually for your cool season, but in an area like yours, where you just lost it, we probably could have here as well if we wanted to use extenders for our season and things like that, especially if you've started them inside a couple of weeks earlier. Throw them outside and do what you can to get a few more tomato plants or cucumber plants or things like that, but be aware of where you're at. Or if you're not going to be able to manage that, maybe start some of the less time necessary cool weather plants, maybe not a broccoli, instead perhaps some spinach, right? I don't really like kale, but spinach is a great one, or sorrel greens, perhaps. I can't imagine that that's a warm weather crop. Like there's all these different leafy greens, the brassicas and the lettuces and all of these different types of amazing cool weather vegetables. And so let's just kind of pop through like this. It's a little bit easier. So this is another way to look at it. You have, when we talked about like January, right? That's when you might start something like a beet or a broccoli and plant indoors and under lights. Move your large plants outdoors as your next stage and start planting some of your small seeds like radishes and carrots, okay? You could also add in your spinaches, your kale, your arugula, all the different types of salad greens that you can grow, right? And then you plant your small seeds a second time, and you plant your small seeds a third time while you're harvesting and cleaning up. This whole time you're harvesting, right? You started in January. If you're in a warm enough place, you started moving your large plants outdoors because remember, these are frost tolerant. They're a cool season. Here, it would probably be a little bit too early on a gonna get a really, really hot year. It might even work here in Utah towards the very, very end of February. So it all depends on exactly where you're at. She's in a warmer place with this particular map. So for you, Kendez, for you, Vanessa, right? You're in Texas and in Tennessee. No, not Tennessee, Alabama. Thank you. So yes. And so those of you in that warmer area, this is going to be more your time frame, okay? And you can get 3 small seed plantings out of this. Notice, not large. Those take up to 3 months for full fruition of broccoli, of cabbage, no, not cabbage, of cauliflower, of perhaps Brussels sprouts. It might need a little bit less time, right? Of your beets, things of that nature. They're going to take longer. So you get 1 planting at this point. But remember, then again in July, you can plan for another cool season harvest. So it's fun all year round, right? And it doesn't have to be huge. You can have a 4x4 square foot garden that would immensely satisfy your needs beginning off for anything that you would want to do, because you're going to have one large cool season, right? Up to 3 small cool seasons. And then you start moving into your warm vegetables, and you see you've already started the large plants indoors in April and under lights, or maybe you've gotten more natural light in your house now. Perhaps that'll be enough. Seeds don't require as much as the full plant will, but remember, anything like tomatoes or peppers, those are the furthest up that step of the gardenary system. That's your fruit. So they're going to take the longest. Up to 120 days are needed, so up to 4 full months. But in the very beginning, they don't have to have quite as much light. Remember, though, when we talked with Tammy, her seedlings were really leggy. If they have to fight for the light, they're not going to be as well started, and it will affect them from the beginning on through. It doesn't mean that you can't have some success, but you won't have the success you could have if you had had the correct setup. Remember, those are the 3 keys to success: setup, timing, and maintenance, right? That's your fun part. So it's all really fun. And doing it like that, all you're doing is just going around and harvesting, even indoors during December and January, but out of doors from as early as maybe middle March for those of you who are in the warmer areas, maybe end of March for those of us in the cooler areas, beginning of April. And then you're just harvesting out of doors until October, early November. There's spots in my garden in the backyard, which is on the north side of the house. And there are 2 spots out there that I think would still have some things like, if I had covered them, perhaps even some tomatoes and peppers, right? They would have definitely needed covered, but there's so much sunlight that my flowers aren't frozen. The cosmos are frozen almost everywhere else. But there's a few places in my backyard that I get to witness and take that knowledge into my garden planning for the coming year. Those 2 spots really get a lot of sunlight, and so I can extend the season by planting things there. Also be aware that in the hottest part of the season, those are going to be some of the hottest spots. And so on the swale and berm, because we didn't get the ground cover established early enough, they couldn't sustain life because of how much heat was over there. Now, with the sunken garden, it started off with a little bit better soil to begin with, quite a bit better. Actually, this was just dead dirt, and this had some grass growing on it that was actually quite quality grass. So it was much better soil, and it was able to sustain life right from the beginning, and it just proliferated through the whole season. That's where, if any of you've watched the tour, that's where you see all those sunflowers and everything. And yes, the sunflowers faded off over a month ago, at least a month ago. But the birds are loving it. And birds are not my favorite creatures, but I do love feeding all of nature. And I just really hope that all of the cats that are here are not decimating the bird population. So Art's actually, I think, still upstairs, next door neighbor, right? We talk about him sometimes, and he's got a kind heart. And so he has got pretty much a little troop of cats that he helps a little bit, right? They're wild, they do their own thing, but he gives them a little bit of food, and they live back there in his backyard, so they're a little bit safer. And so coming this spring, summer, he and I are going to work together with Megan Pater. She doesn't know this yet exactly. She kind of does. I've already started cluing her in as well. But we're going to work with her to develop what she's done there in her area in Kern County, I think is what it is. But anyway, wherever it is that she's at, she's developed this program for spaying and neutering, rehoming, the adoption, all of these different things. And we want to work together to build out her template so that she has that, and so that any of us would be able to do something like this. If in our area there's a problem like what we're experiencing just on this one little corner of Tooele, I can only imagine that there's multiple spots throughout the entire city and county even that have similar infestations of animals. And at minimum, even if they're released back into the wild, if they get spayed and neutered, they won't be continuing to create more of a problem, right? So there's a lot of different things that can happen and different programs and how they handle it. And I hope not to have any kind of killing involved, right? So it'd be a no-kill shelter. But at some point, if you still have animals coming in that need to be spayed and neutered, that's really more important than holding them in not ideal conditions, right? It doesn't matter how clean it is and wonderful. Cats would rather be either outside or getting rehomed and getting comfortable being in a house so that they have space and free movement and things like that, right? So all of those different kinds of things. We're going to set up an area. Bart's got different areas that he's talked about. If I need to, I can put it in my garage or in my garden shed. But somehow these animals are so sweet. Some animals are not as nice, but because these guys have been sheltered so well in Bart's backyard, these little guys don't need to get to be a bigger problem, eating more of these birds and the bugs and small rodents and small mammals. They need to either get homes or at least stop having more and more and more babies, right? And so just if you guys know of any areas like that, we have plans in the works, right? We'll get started on that as well. Always so much to go on. And so here you have, again, how she's walking it through. You see the months where in September, you start the large plants indoors under lights. Why would that be? That must be for really warm areas, because then that would be moving it out into December, where you're covering plants. Perhaps for a lot of us, we could do that. Maybe. It's quite possible if you're willing to cover the plants, especially if you have the right setup, as she said. So that's pushing it a little bit, but that's what you would have wanted to do. At the very latest for cool weather, we would have started it 2.5 months ago, right? And so this is the kind of information that she was walking through. It was all really interesting. And again, great setup, perfect timing. And then maintenance is intensive and seasonal planting. That's one of the ways to look at that maintenance block for your success. And so lots of interesting things, lots and lots to come. What did you guys think about all of that? Was that an interesting way to look at your garden, right, through that kind of a perspective?
I liked it.
Yeah, I think so as well. Let's see what Benny has to say too. It is so beautiful, isn't it, Benny? I think he was talking about the pictures, or perhaps the image for class. I'm not sure there. And then everybody's saying hi. Lots of parrots. He says, yes, very interesting, this process. Benny is definitely a happy pet parent of a parrot, right? Tons of fun. All right, guys. Well, let's jump into our calendar, and we will be back again with you here in Collectively Rewilding this Sunday for Miss Tammy, Tea and Talk with Tammy, and that's Sunday, November 16th at 12 o'clock p.m. for Pacific, 1 o'clock p.m. Mountain, 2 o'clock p.m. Central, and 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern. And I will be back with you that same evening, Sunday, November 16th, for Yarn Yard for Tall Tales. And did I say Tea and Talk with Tammy? So many T's. I think I might have skipped it, but for sure, Tea and Talk with Tammy. She always has something fun planned. And then Yarn Yard for Tall Tales this Sunday, November 16th, 7:30 p.m. Pacific, 8:30 p.m. Mountain, 9:30 Central, and 10:30 Eastern. Hope you guys are able to make it. And of course, tomorrow, Megan and I will get together in Lesko Help 2 for Action Plan for your nonprofit. I haven't gotten any mail, so Collectively Rewilding Foundation has not gotten tax exempt service or status, excuse me. And I think that Candace is right. We were talking about it earlier in Country Living and Business. I think that, oh, and she's with us now. I think she's right that the IRS wasn't worried about my tax exempt status while everything was shut down. So
I'm sorry.
I'm not worried about it a bit. It's going to be so much fun to tear through Megan's brain, and this is going to give us a couple of extra classes where we can do that, and we're gaining so much. I mean, have you guys seen the list that she's building for us to work out all of these different? Let me move my toolbar here. Things that are a part of the nonprofit process. It is just tremendous. And so we're going to walk through all of these things. Once we get that tax exempt status, we're going to move on to these additional pieces. She's already started at a second tab. Oh, we had to end class, and then she and I couldn't quite get together, I think. But she already has intentions for a whole nother tab, and this one is like 6 notes, 8 pages of all these different things that she wants to talk about in regards to doing those nonprofits, right? So this is going to be some amazing pieces that we're just going to tear through slowly over the next year. I'm sure it's going to take us a good long bit of time, and also somewhere in there, whether in this class or in an entirely new class, perhaps over in Collectively Rewilding, doing the spay and neuter clinic templates and adoption templates for unwanted animals, lost, stranded, abandoned animals, right? So that's just so wonderful, and that's what we're going to be diving more into tomorrow, because I don't have that status yet. Hopefully it's not because there's any issues. I don't see why there would be, other than the fact that I have also included CRF as their initials. And as we've talked about in the action plan for your nonprofit, for Collectively Rewilding, I was lucky. They didn't give me any kind of a hard time, and I never even thought about it as a native Coloradan, but CR is the Colorado Rockies, right? Obviously, when I saw that, I was just like, okay, duh moment, right? So the CRF might be holding us up as well, but I really think and hope that Candace is probably right. So hope to see you guys all at those different fun things, and I hope you all have a wonderful end of your week. Please feel free to unmute and say good night, everyone. And good night, Benny, down there in the chat.
You too, Sabrina. Sabrina, did you go to the meeting yesterday?
No, I wasn't prepared. As long as nobody else wants to work on anything next week, we're going to get a whole plan. And then I have 2 weeks to get ready for it. And then we'll meet together for that final planning, and I'll go in and hopefully I'll be able to record that. I'll find out when I get there if I haven't called or something, but I probably will just kind of show up. And if I can, I can. If I can't, I can't. And we'll just go through that whole process. Really exciting, I think. So no, I bailed.
Okay, that's okay, because I just wanted, I knew you would read it and understand it and dissect it. So that was my biggest thing. But
oh, it was so helpful. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, good night, everybody. Talk to y'all later.
Bye, guys. Good night. Thanks again, Candace, and everyone always.
Good night.
Good night.